No one has really proven the associate model for me yet, but actually what makes an office successful now is the same as what it was 15 years ago. If you've not had anxiety and you just said, I've got anxiety, people might just think, oh, you're just a little bit worried about things every now and again, but it's more than that. It can be, it's crippling.
So in the last 15 years, what do you think the biggest change has been in agency?
I actually don't think there's a huge amount of change. I think there's been a lot of people or companies trying to change a lot, but essentially where we are now isn't that far off of where we were 15 years ago. We already had Rightmove and the portals had just come in then. I was only probably 2 years of having a hot box, and then we had CRM systems. But actually, what makes an office successful now is the same as what it was 15 years ago. No matter what tech you've got, marketing, anything behind you, it's all about the individuals that are dealing with the customers on a daily basis, who don't miss opportunities, who provide that extra customer care. They're the ones that are successful. So actually, there isn't huge changes. You've had a lot of people have been saying 15 years ago, the high street's going to be dead. Well, been saying that for 15 years, but here we still are, and still probably the most successful estate agents are the high street agents.
Okay, and so Fine & Country announced their associate model as well recently. What's your views on that?
I've got mixed opinions on it, and no one has really proven the associate model for me yet. There's probably the exception of Sean Newman in the Midlands, does very, very well out of it. But you've got agents like Purple Bricks or Keller Williams have all got this self-employed. Can't remember the new one from America, EXP. Another one come in, and then Fine & Country are very much for trying to facilitate it across the network, and I can understand why, because it brings costs down for you as a business owner. Finding people that want to work for themselves, they'll be self-employed, self-driven, like running their own business. The hard reality is there's not that many people either who want to take those risks, who are necessarily capable of doing it. And I also feel sometimes we're trying to copy other models of other countries like Australia and America when our client base isn't necessarily the same.
So if you were starting completely from a fresh blank canvas, would you have the same model as you got today?
Not necessarily, no. I probably don't want to give away too much about the direction I want to head in, and I want to transform the business model, but I'm still not going to get away from being a high street presence or having employed staff and having teams and supporting each other, but with all having their own responsibilities.
And it'd be good to get your thoughts on prop tech. It's a very much it's a highly used word in the industry. It has been probably for the last 5 years. It's really ramped up. But what is it to you? What does it mean to you, the word prop tech, and what are you using or not using?
There's loads and loads of products out there now. There's always new entries to the market. Some will work and some will fall by the wayside. Tech is really important to embrace it. There's no doubt about it, and there's some stuff out there that's better than others. Again, what I don't ever want to happen is that tech takes over everything. Someone not picking up the phone for feedback or giving feedback, for example, on a property viewing, and just emailing or it just all being automated is not the way to go. There is almost a fear of people picking up the phone and speaking to people these days, but actually that's when you'll win the most business. You'll create a better conversation. That person will warm to you. You'll spot another opportunity. You will overcome an objection. So, we never want to get rid of that. But at the same time, you have to embrace technology if you're not as an agent. And there's still loads out there for me that are stuck in the dark ages that it becomes harder and harder for them to catch up. And we want to be one step ahead. But it's about picking the right products that work for you.
So when Purple Bricks launched, and they're still here, aren't they? How did you feel about that? And has it ever bothered you, or are you one of the agents that have just learnt how to sell against it, or do you just plain ignore it and say, well, they are what they are, they're not going anywhere, we have to learn to live with them?
I'd probably be lying if when they first come out I said I wasn't worried about them or was going to react to them in terms of fees and that. You know, it all crossed my mind and loads of thoughts and considerations. I never thought it would go up to the 20% market share within 2 or 3 years like they said they would, because ultimately it's people's biggest asset. You know, it's a huge amount of money that they're entrusting, and they're not necessarily wanting to spend £800 on selling their property. I know it's not good for the client either. I know that I or my team can negotiate a better price that far outweighs, you know, what they're spending on the fee.
Mental awareness and all that kind of stuff, mental health is quite a big thing at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a lot of men don't talk about it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to talk about it.
Yeah.
Because I think it's quite topical. And we've had chats before about the stresses of being a business owner. We've got quite similar views on that, because it's something we don't talk about. But how have you found it? Because it's obviously...
I think it's really important to talk about it. And I'm quite open to talking about it as well. And, you know, a couple of years ago, or probably not even that, I started getting anxiety really, really badly. And I think when if you've not had anxiety and you just said I've got anxiety, people might just think, oh, you're just a little bit worried about things every now and again. But it's more than that. It can be, you know, it's crippling, you know, and it is really, you know, really quite serious. And, you know, male suicide is really high. And that's a big cause of it. You know, as a business leader who's out there looking for you, and there wasn't perhaps enough care or support when, you know, you say, oh, I've got anxiety. You know, you need someone to step in and go, okay, let's help you with that. You know, so that, with the old business and the stresses and anxiety, probably led me to, you know, make a change in the business, which was hard for me because I'd owned the business for 15 years. It was my baby, you know. I loved it. And actually, when I actually made that decision that I needed to step back, I didn't have the emotional attachment to the old business that I thought I was going to. Actually, I started becoming happier. I started becoming more excited about the future, creating something differently. You know, I'm not looking back. I'm looking forward. But I've still got anxiety, and I speak to my team about it. I'm really open with them, so that if I talk about it, if they've got a problem, they'll talk about it. You know, it's really hard as a business owner when you're working all the hours, you want to be successful, you know, your cash flow's tight at the beginning, first quarter of the year, and you just think, I've got to bring the money in, I've got to work harder and harder. I sit here and say this, I've not changed anything enough yet or anything really, but I recognise the issues, I recognise what I need to address. I'm just starting a CBT course, a cognitive behavioural therapy, which is the first step in going, you know what, I've got anxiety. Even when things are good, you can still have it. It's not something you can necessarily control, but I need help for someone to go, this is how we deal with it. You need someone just to say to you, even when you know everything you're doing wrong, or you're not exercising enough, or you're working late, you need someone sometimes independently to go, you know, you can't do that. I'm paying for my private CBT course. The lady there said there's 1,000 people in the area, like within a county, waiting for that support on the NHS. So when's that going to come around to them? Not very quickly. And that, you know, that's got serious consequences for a lot of people.